All right, welcome to a special St. Patrick's Day edition of Star Trek Neutral Zone. This is episode 4, titled Politics by Other Means, and I will start with a recap of our previous episode, which was titled Pitch Black. Previously on Star Trek Neutral Zone, the crew of Starbase 23 learned that Cassia, a mysterious Romulan freighter captain and recent arrival to the station, was once a member of a top-secret Tal Shiar research project that attempted to turn cloned human children into viral carriers. Cassia and one of her colleagues smuggled 2 of the cloned children out of their facility and made plans to send them to the Federation where they'd be safe. After rescuing one of the children from a passenger vessel on the brink of a warp core detonation, Cassia informed you that a second child, hidden inside a modified torpedo, was scheduled to arrive on a planet within a dark matter nebula inside the neutral zone. You planned a stealth mission into the neutral zone, figured out a means of navigating the dark matter nebula, and found the child huddled in a cave in the middle of a forest populated by dark matter plant life. You managed to fight off an attack by several arboreal needle snakes before returning to the starbase with a second child safely aboard your runabout. So we're going to start with this first scene. You guys have been summoned to the office of Fleet Admiral Bail Chithanis, an Andorian woman who is the senior Starfleet officer in charge of deployments along this section of the Romulan neutral zone. So first, let's start off with you guys introducing your characters and how you present yourself as you stride through the double doors as they swish open and you step into the lavishly appointed Admiral's office at kind of the very tip top of Starbase 23. We'll start with Miguel.
Okay, I am the executive officer, I assume. I am Dietrich Holm. This has been a very trying couple of weeks, has it not been? So, basically, despite all of that and having to pull what would be the equivalent of double and triple shifts, Dietrich always presents himself in a very professional manner. Hair combed, face shaved, all that. He is always going to be prepared to report to his superiors. And yeah, this is, of course, one of those situations, especially with what happened last time, that this is going to be a big thing, isn't it?
Yeah, you can see as you walk into the office, there's these rather these large picture windows that give a pretty breathtaking view of the surrounding space around the starbase. But you see that she has a look of all business on her face as she sits behind her desk. And we'll go to Lieutenant Thelov Chsearch, played by Paul. Go ahead and introduce your character.
Hi, so my character's Lieutenant Thelov Chsearch. I'm an Andorian engineer, very young Andorian engineer. I'm only a Lieutenant JG. He's a very matter-of-fact sort of person, very focused on his work. So turning up into the Admiral's office, he's probably going to be sleeves rolled up and a couple of tools in his hand and maybe looking a little bit irritated that he's been dragged away from his work. But he does respect superior officers, so I'll be sort of tidying myself up as I walk through the door.
Yeah, the Admiral says, I hope I didn't interrupt anything too important, Lieutenant.
Nothing too important, sir.
Please have a seat. And then we'll skip to our medical officer, Dr. Melvin Stanislov, played by Yong.
Yep. So my character is Melvin Stanislov. He's the lieutenant commander. He's also the chief medical officer for the Starbase 23. Melvin walks in looking kind of rugged with 3-day unshaven, face. He looks as if he's been enjoying himself and obviously drinking a little bit. But he's tucking in his shirt and making sure that he's proper right before he presents himself to his superior officer, trying to do his best to fit in.
Yeah, she motions for the 3 of you to sit down in these cushioned chairs that she has situated in front of her desk. And you notice that some of the decor in her office, it appears to be artifacts, mostly like ice picks and some weapons that Lieutenant Chsearch you'd probably recognize as belonging to the Anar, the sort of telepathic subspecies from the Andorian homeworld. It seems that she has some sort of particular interest in the Anar, but she doesn't really refer to that as you guys step into the office and sit down. She says, I have some urgent business to discuss, but first, Dr. Stanislov, I would appreciate your assessment of our new visitors to the station, these two clones that apparently carry a host of viruses in their tissues. Do you think that they pose any sort of threat to the general population of Starbase 23?
So far, they've been quarantined in the med bay, and it seems like they're stable. We have done what we can in order to remove all the virus from their bodies, and as of now, it seems like they pose no threat. I was going to assess their progress for another 2 days or so before integrating them along with the rest of the crew.
Okay, yes, please keep me apprised of whatever you find out. I would like a report within several hours after the conclusion of this meeting, and I think you'll understand why once I've brought you up to speed. Gentlemen, we're going to have visitors on the Starbase. Captain Clag, the commander of the Klingon Negvar-class warship, the IKS Geek Tal, is on his way here for a diplomatic meeting. Obviously, we are allies with the Klingons. We share a strong friendship at the moment, but as you guys well know, the Klingons are a volatile people, and so we want everything to be polished and ready to go on their arrival, and we want to be able to expect the unexpected. So I would just pause the action for a moment here and ask each of you to tell me, we haven't had any Klingons on Star Trek Neutral Zone so far. Why don't you guys tell me what your attitudes are toward the Klingons, each of you in turn?
Well, technically, I did meet the Klingon running the
Oh,
bar.
no, you're right. Yeah, there is a Klingon who runs a punk rock club on the concourse. That's right. And your character, Dietrich Holm, speaks Klingon. I'm sorry, I forgot all about that.
Technically, Dietrich Holm would have had a security. What would it be? Like a tour of duty on Kronos, which is what I'm assuming is when he met the Federation diplomat, and we'll say that's how he met his wife and all that. But that's why I have the focus slotted by friend of the Klingons, traits, and also Klingon culture. So yeah, he understands how they act, all of that, especially when having to be on the capital planet, and they are very volatile. To the point it's an amazing miracle that they even have a government at all, because they tend to solve all their political differences through combat. Especially with how it ended with DS9 with Worf killing Gowron.
Absolutely, that's an important insight, and I appreciate your input, Lieutenant Commander. How about Lieutenant Research as an Andorian? Does your character have any firsthand experience with Klingons, and what does he think?
Very little at all. I've grew up on an Andorian colony world, and since, to the best of my knowledge, there's only one Klingon in Starfleet, I can't say that I've ever actually come into contact with them. As an Andorian, I'm understandably wary of them for all the reasons that have just been said.
Mm-hmm. And also, as an engineer, you would recognize the Negvar class as the Klingon sort of top-of-the-line battleship, very large, impressive craft. How about Dr. Stanislov?
Melvin has studied the Klingon physiology a bit while he was in the academy, and he's familiar with their illnesses and how they evolved from their previous, organisms. But personally, his encounter was en route to the Starbase 23, where he was playing a drinking game along with one of the Klingons. He didn't understand that the drinking game involved getting punched in the face a bunch of times. So he respects their culture, but he's quite afraid of them.
Okay, cool. And so, yeah, as a doctor, you would know that they have all sorts of redundancies in their physiology. They've got backups in 2 of almost every major organ. So if they're injured in combat or injured in some sort of accident, they've usually got some kind of backup to sort of snap into place and keep them alive. So the Admiral Chithanis would turn to Lieutenant Commander Holm, and she would say that I know that you have extensive experience with the Klingons. I would appreciate it if you could prepare some kind of dossier for me, some kind of briefing to get us ready for the arrival of the Geek Tal. I would like you to look into its commanding officer, this Captain Clag, and let me know any sort of red flags or any information of interest that I ought to know as they're on their way here for this diplomatic confab.
Admiral, when are they expected to arrive?
We have 2 days to prepare.
Okay, good. I shall try and prepare a dossier by 1800 hours then.
I would appreciate it greatly. Dr. Stanislov and Lieutenant Chisurch, if you would be able to perhaps conduct diagnostics of the security systems of the station to make sure we're prepared for VIP visitors. And Dr. Stanislov, if you could just confirm for me that our guests in the med lab don't pose any sort of undue threat to our very important Klingon guests, that would be wonderful.
As you have it, sir. Ma'am.
I'll work with the security teams, Admiral.
Thank you. Do you have any questions?
Admiral, did they ever state their reason for their visit?
This is a diplomatic visit. Starfleet Command feels that strengthening our diplomatic bonds are important, especially because we both peoples have a rather difficult relationship with the Romulans. Starfleet Command has decided that it might be beneficial to have a regular Klingon presence along the neutral zone. I assume that this visit is going to be parcel with that effort.
How many crews are they bringing on board, Admiral?
Well, as I understand it, Captain Clag will come aboard, and he will have an honor guard with him. It shouldn't be more than, I would expect, a half a dozen Klingon warriors.
I understand. It's not my place to ask, but we have Casey on board. With Romulan on board, do you think that'll pose a problem with Klingons?
A good question. I don't expect it to. I know that Captain Casey, from your reports, has been running regular cargo runs to various ports along the neutral zone, and it seems that we have no reason to suspect that she might try anything untoward.
That is all, Admiral.
A wise precaution. A good question, Doctor. Yeah, so if there's nothing else, we will cut to the next scene as you guys sort of make whatever preparations you think are going to be necessary for the visit of this VIP Klingon.
Okay, yeah, it's basically going to be a in-depth research on the Klingon commander that's coming in. So I think I'm going to get my feet wet on that.
Yeah, you probably need to consult the Starbase's computer library, well, which is not going to be a difficulty 0 task. We'll say reason plus con. Also, it would be aided by the Starbase's stats, which I have prepared.
Yeah, I got the
using
PDF.
the latest. Yeah, cool. So someone can roll for the Starbase if you like. Just roll 1d20 since you're assisting, and it would be computers plus con. So a target of 13 or less.
I roll 4.
Okay, so there's one success. Lieutenant Commander Holm, how many successes did you roll?
I got a 19 and a 15.
Were either of those successes?
Above.
Okay, so you got one success because this is an important and strategically located starbase, and its computer systems are top notch. And despite your sort of unfamiliarity with going through Klingon personnel files, you are able to locate some information on this class.
I assume this guy is actually recently promoted and all this, hence why I'm unfamiliar.
Yes, so he has been recently promoted. It seems that for years and years, he was the first officer to Captain Kargan, who was the captain of a bird of prey called the Pach. Captain Kargan is now has recently been promoted to general, and he is now the leading Klingon officer aboard Narendra Station, a star base often near the Shackleton Expanse, deep in the Beta Quadrant, which is also run by Starfleet. It's a joint star base with Klingon and Starfleet personnel. And so when Captain Kargan was promoted to general, his first officer, this Commander Clag, was promoted to captain, and Kargan was influential enough to be able to get Clag this rather plum assignment as the commanding officer of the Geek Tal, which, as we noted earlier, is sort of a top-of-the-line Negvar-class warship.
Interesting. Am I able to research any sort of basically where he stood during the Klingon Civil War?
So you only got the one success. If you don't have any momentum at the moment, I would allow you to maybe pay into threat.
Yeah,
if you wanted to get. Yeah. Okay, cool. So I'll get one extra. I started out with 2 points of threat for each of you, and I'll take one more. So I got a total of 7. And you are able to determine that Clag appears to be loyal to the current chancellor, which I believe is
Gowron.
371. Yeah.
What is it?
So. So it appears that actually you also turn up that Clag did have some run-ins with Starfleet previously. When there used to be a Klingon Federation officer exchange program, Commander William Riker, then of the USS Enterprise D, spent some time aboard the Pach as the first officer, and Clag actually took a demotion, a temporary demotion, to be the second officer aboard the Pach. And it turns out they butted heads at first, but then they, of course, grew to respect one another by the end of the exchange program. So it appears from your looking through the records, he's had some experience with Starfleet that wasn't totally problematic. It appears that he was able to establish some kind of understanding with Commander Riker. It also looks like he is loyal to the current chancellor, and you don't see any reason from these personnel files to suspect that he's anything other than a fairly distinguished Klingon military commander.
Okay, cool.
Anything else that you care to do before we cut?
I think I'm going to just ensure that if everything else, I'll be looking into making sure that the welcoming ceremony is very much appropriate, not just in terms of Federation standards, but Klingon too.
Yeah, it's interesting that you should mention the welcoming ceremony. So as you're doing these, as you're doing this research, we'll say on ops, the sort of the command center of the starbase, an unauthorized person enters ops and sort of begins pestering you. His name is Grelka. He's the Ferengi and the proprietor of the Starview Cafe, whom you've had run-ins with before. And he says, Lieutenant Commander Holm, may I have a moment of your time, please?
Yes, Grelka? I quickly turn to face them.
Well, I know that you and I have had nothing but mutually profitable interactions in the past. I would just like to, I've heard through the grapevine, never mind how, I have heard that we're going to have some guests on the station. We're going to have some dinner guests. I just happen to know a lovely restaurant that would be primo accommodation for this sort of big diplomatic confab. I just wanted to offer my services in case you wanted to schedule any sort of banquet at the Starview Cafe.
Grelka, are you familiar with what our guests are? I turn to smile.
Well, Latinum is Latinum.
Yes, that is the Starview Cafe, prepared for that.
The Starview Cafe is, of course, prepared for anything that might generate some profit. And, of course, provide our diners with an absolute grade A experience.
Well, then, I suggest you get in contact with my lieutenant in security, and he will ensure everything is going to be fine, Grelka.
And if we conduct a security sweep and everything is on the up and up?
And ensuring that the menu is, of course, going to be very palatable for both guests.
Of course, we'll have plenty of standard Federation fare. Also, we have a delicious roqueg blood pie.
Mm-hmm. Good. Expect to hear more in 1700 hours then. See ya, Grelka.
Okay, thank you, Lieutenant Commander Holm. It's a pleasure doing business with you as usual. He shuffles out of ops. Let's cut to our other two officers. What are you guys doing to get prepared for the Klingons' arrival?
Being as I'm kind of wary about these Klingons, I'm going to work with our security and tactical people. I want to make sure that all the stations, weapons, and defences are operating, and I'm going to work with them to do a tactical assessment of the Negvar warship. I want to make sure that if there's any problems, that we're well prepared for it, and particularly since I believe it's probably going to have a cloaking device, we'd really kind of like to know when it arrives.
They always have cloaking devices.
Yes. You feel pretty safe in your assumption that this ship is going to be outfitted with a cloaking device. It's going to be a pretty difficult task. The operating procedure for this kind of visit is they should not have it operational. To detect cloaked ships, it's like a difficulty 5 task, I think. But because I think because they're Klingons and they're allies, it drops a point of difficulty to like difficulty 4. And maybe if you wanted to take some time to set up to create an advantage or something, you could even lower that difficulty further.
I'll see if I can work with some of the engineering teams and just make sure the station sensors are operating well. I don't think it'll be necessary to try and detect them because, as you say, they shouldn't be turning up with the cloaking device on, but you never know. Klingons have a way of making a statement by creeping up right next to you and then decloaking.
Absolutely. Yeah. So it'll be a difficulty 2 task to create that advantage. And you can sort of narrate for me, what attribute and discipline you want to use, and narrate for me what you're trying to accomplish to make it a little bit easier to detect cloaked vessels in the vicinity of the starbase.
I'm just going to work with some of the operations staff on the sensors. I'm not exactly sure what I'm going to be looking for, but I think it's sort of subspace interference, subspace ripples, that kind of thing that usually shows off a cloaked warship. I know it used to be a tailpipe, but apparently that doesn't work anymore. So
yeah, they quit manufacturing. Yeah, with the tailpipe. Go ahead and give me a difficulty 2 task, and if you succeed, then you will have created that subspace monitoring.
So I think it's probably be control and engineering.
Okay, that works.
And I'll be cautious about it, which gives me an extra die 20. So that's 3 die 20.
Okay.
So I'm looking for 15 or less. So that's an 8, a 2, and a 10. So that's 3 successes.
Okay, cool. So you have successfully created an advantage, and you generate a point of momentum, which is your first of the session. And you now have an advantage. I'll call it subspace monitoring. So you guys will, your sensors are just sort of set up to be looking for any sort of subspace artifact that could potentially be created by a cloaked vessel. And that'll just kind of be running in the background. Dr. Stanislov, what are you up to?
So in the meanwhile, he's at the med bay trying to determine any Klingon susceptibility for a disease from these two folks, these two children. And also he's researching if there's, what to look for in case that the Klingons that are coming on board is carrying potential virulent vectors.
Yep. So you know right off the bat that just the sheer extent of the viruses that are infecting these two children, there's bound to be something that could potentially impact the Klingons should they become exposed to these viruses. In fact, it looks like the Tal Shiar intentionally engineered at least several of these viruses to target Klingons. You also know that there is standard protocols in place that all visitors to the starbase go through an automatic screening process that should eliminate any pathogens that they might be carrying, sort of like a transporter filter, that they might be carrying pathogens aboard the Starbase. So that's sort of a matter of course. If you want to do something to try and strengthen those mechanisms, you could.
Yep, he's going to go ahead and do that.
Okay.
I'm rolling under 15. I rolled 3, so that's a success.
Okay, so you get a success. What exactly? What are you looking for? Is it like the biofilters? You want to strengthen the biofilters?
Yeah, I mean, as a result of his research, he's looking for any potential, sequences in genetic makeup that may, threaten the rest of the crew. So yeah, he'll be reinforcing the genetic filters.
Cool. So yeah, the biofilters have been kind of recycled, and you feel that the two children, they're both Marin. One's kind of a male version, the other is a female version, roughly like 10 years old humans. They're safely behind quarantine fields. It's maybe kind of a lonely existence, but they seem to be in fairly high spirits. They're used to kind of living in difficult circumstances where they've been receiving periodic genetic treatments throughout their lives. And you also think that because as long as they remain behind the quarantine field, everyone should be safe, including the Klingons. Does anyone care to do anything else before you report back to the Admiral with your findings?
Melvin, oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I was about to say there is that Klingon who runs the punk rock bar. I think I should try to also get some additional information from him.
Velthog the Thrasher. Yeah.
Yes, because there are certain things that are not on the Federation computers, and he might have an ear on that.
Yep, absolutely. So you go to the Blood Wine A Go-Go, the punk rock club on the concourse, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you've been here before. You know that it's just deafening volume. There's a house band up on stage, a Klingon woman playing a vintage antique guitar with a drummer and bass player behind her who are both Binars, and they're like totally synced in with each other, playing this really loud sort of punk rock music. And there's most of the patrons in the joint are Klingons. They're guzzling blood wine, they're arm wrestling, they're punching one another. It's pretty much pandemonium. And behind the bar, you see this large Klingon who's missing an arm. One of his arms is missing below the elbow. He's got this huge, curly, dark mane with streaks of silver going down. And you recognize this as your friend Velthog. You guys left each other on pretty good terms the last time you guys met.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Well, hail to you, Melvog. How's business?
Booming, as you can see. Klingons love to thrash.
Indeed. I think you heard about some news coming up.
My friend, I don't know what you're talking about. Please tell me more. And he brings out 2 chalices from beneath the bar and pours blood wine into each one of them, offers you one of them.
Okay, well, I need to know about a certain captain. A Captain Kang?
Captain Clegg?
Clegg, yes.
Clegg.
Yes. He is actually coming here, and I need to found out he is actually relatively recently promoted.
I had not heard. I have not spent much time in the Klingon Defense Force, and it's been years since I paid very close attention to the inner machinations and politics of the Defense Force. But I did know of a young Lieutenant Clegg years and years ago, and I know that his father, the scum, died of old age rather than dying in glorious battle.
Oh, that is such a tragedy.
His father died a feeble coward in his bed.
Yeah, interesting. So you happen to know of his house?
Clegg comes from an honorable house. His father was not a particularly important figure in the house, but he was a longtime member of the Klingon Defense Force, who had many opportunities to sacrifice himself in battle, but instead retired. Last I knew, Clegg had not spoken to him for years, as any honorable Klingon would disavow his father in such a situation.
Interesting, interesting. Interesting. But you've been hearing about what's been happening on Kronos recently, especially with things happening here and also with that thing called DS9.
I stay out of the Empire's politics. I simply want to run a punk rock club and perhaps get in a bloody bar fight on occasion.
The perfect way to settle down.
I never had the stomach for politicians and whispers and back rooms and hallways.
Of course, but it's a different sort of warfare, and certain people have a taste for that.
Not me, my friend. I have a taste for the blood wine.
Good. I think I drink it down and let him know that the next time we meet, he should try out some whiskey.
It would be my honor, my friend.
The honor would be mine, too. See ya.
Cool. Anybody else want to do anything before you report back to the Admiral?
Yeah, actually, Dr. Stanislov, he goes back to his med bay and sits down. He identifies about 3 different virulent strains that may affect the Klingons, and he tries to modify the existing vaccine so that it would also vaccinate Klingon physiology should the children get out of quarantine field by any chance.
Okay, yeah, give me a difficulty 1. Actually, difficulty 2, because this is Klingon physiology and not necessarily one you might be familiar with. Reason plus medicine task, difficulty 2.
13, he makes it. And 18, he fails one.
Okay, so you're able to identify you're able to identify all of the strains of virus in these children that might affect the Klingons, but because you just don't have enough data on their anatomy at the moment, you think you're not going to have enough time to synthesize vaccines before they arrive.
Okay, he's going to keep on working on it.
Okay. Anybody else?
Well, I think Tachiris is working with my Department of Security, so is there anything else I can assist him with?
You mentioned perhaps the security suite of the Starview Cafe.
Okay, interesting. Sure. So it'll be the lieutenant and someone under my command that's going to be with him then.
Yeah, if you want to create a new supporting cast member, we totally could, or we can just kind of wing it.
Yeah, we'll wing it, because I think you can actually declare stats as you go along.
Yep. Okay, that's fine. Tell me who this security officer is. And Paul, you could chime in too, since you're the one working with him or her.
I've got the book here open at a standard Starfleet security officer, so we could use him for starters.
Oh, yeah, perfect. Yeah, there's NPCs in there. That'd be awesome.
Yep.
Yes, let's use that. Where is it on the book?
314.
And it is is it a human? Is it a
don't believe it says actually. Oh yes, yep. Human.
Trait human. Okay. You care to give him or her name, Paul?
Oh, now you're asking. Hang on. I'm trying to find my name generator. Ah, there we go. Let's call him Greer. Mark Greer.
Mark Greer. Cool.
GRWR.
Okay, so a couple junior grade lieutenants have been assigned to conduct a security sweep of Grauka's restaurant on the concourse. As you guys enter, you notice that, and you've probably been here before if you've spent any time on the Starbase, that it is a fairly fancy restaurant. It's got 2 floors, and the upper floor features a lot of dim lighting. There's candles on most of the tables, and the entire wall on the upper level is made up of the transparent aluminum, granting a pretty breathtaking vista of the surrounding space. And as soon as you walk in, Grauka notices you and welcomes you in and says, I'm sure you're here to inspect my establishment. You will find everything in perfect order, I promise.
We are. Are we free to look around anywhere?
Of course, absolutely. I believe on Earth they say, mi casa es su casa.
If they do, I've never heard it. We say something completely different on Andor.
Of course. I'm sure they do. I'm sure it's just as charming.
So I'll focus my inspection, my scans on the structure of the place. I want to make sure that the structure of the room, the restaurant, and particularly that window is sound. And we'll let the security officer, Greer, we'll let him scan for I don't know, any hidden weapons, hidden bugs, anything along those kind of lines.
Yes,
Yep.
hidden surveillance devices in case a window
absolutely.
can be broken in and a bomb thrown.
Yep, I'll be looking for that kind of thing as well, just in case anything's been pre-planted.
Yep. So, Paul, how about you give me a reason plus engineering task, difficulty 1.
Sure.
And Miguel, reason plus security, difficulty 1.
So I'm looking for 15s again.
1 success.
Okay. You sorry, my earbud popped out. The security officer, Lieutenant Greer, is pretty sure there is some kind of bug near the bar, some kind of audio-only surveillance device.
Kind of expected that. Let's point this out to Grauka, shall we? See if we can get it removed before any guests turn up.
Yeah, Grauka looks embarrassed for a moment and runs over and picks it up and turns it off and says, "Oh, this is just a standard security device. You appreciate it. I've got it running all the time. I forgot about it entirely. I would have, of course, turned it off before our Klingon guests arrive."
Absolutely, and I'm assuming it is legal as well, and that you have a permit for it.
Oh, perfectly. Everything is perfectly legal here.
I'll just check with station security on that. Then I'm sure they'll want to come and talk to you if they don't know about it.
Oh, I see no reason to get station security involved. If we could just keep this between you and me, Lieutenant. Look, it's off. I turned it off. It's fine. He hands it over.
That'll do for now.
He kind of breathes a sigh of relief.
We'll continue the scans then. I've got a 2 and a 9, so I think that's actually 3 successes.
Oh, okay. That generates 2 more points of momentum. You now have 3. You, yeah. So the window, it looks perfectly structurally sound. You know, if there were some kind of external attack on the station and the shields were to go down, that might be a vulnerability. It'd be kind of a judgment call on your part, whether or not that's a warranted risk or not. But there doesn't appear to be anything deficient about the wall.
Okay, I'm looking as well for anything out of place. I'm looking for any potential devices, particularly explosive devices. Looking for any anything abnormal in, for example, the power systems in the place. I want to make sure.
Yep,
nothing's going to go bang.
Yeah, you find nothing irregular. In fact, you give it a very thorough once over and don't find anything that you suspect to be nefarious or dangerous.
Okay. We're good with that then. I think we've found at least 1 bug. We've checked the place out, so I think we're good to go.
And Grauka says, "I'm so pleased to hear you say that, Lieutenant. I think this confab is going to go off without a hitch. You're going to have the finest facilities and the finest food that the Starbase has to offer. I guarantee it.
I'm glad to hear that. And we might send a security team back just to do a quick spot check before the guests get here.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I'd
Just
only
in
be
case.
too happy to accommodate them, Lieutenant.
I'm
Do
sure
not
you would.
worry. We are going to be very sure you're going to be able to accommodate us.
It's only good business to work with the officials.
Mm-hmm.
Well, thank you for your time.
Oh, thank you. And remember, come back anytime you want. Best food on the concourse.
We will.
I guess my lieutenant will just mention to Sheriff is I think we're going to have to be doing spot checks constantly, especially if Grolka decides to find their courage again.
I think you're right. I think we need to come back at some point and just do another quick spot check, perhaps at exactly the same place where we found the last bug.
No, that's the definition of insanity if you're going to be placing it in the same place over and over again.
Ah, but it's a double bluff. He'll put the bug in exactly the same place, assuming that we'll look everywhere else.
As the conversation's going on, the door opens and Dr. Stanislov enters also, and finds the lieutenant and Grolkar standing over there. He approaches and says, "Hey, Lieutenant Jasurch, it's good to see you. How's everything?"
Hey, Doc, how are you doing? We're doing well here.
Well, I'm kind of nervous about the banquet that we're gonna have a little later. I don't know if I'm gonna be invited or not, but I don't know anything about Klingon food. I hear that they have something called Japak. I don't know what's the name. It's the stuff that looks like it's alive.
I'm not sure myself, but from what I hear from some of my friends at Starfleet, if you're not being invited to a Klingon banquet, you're probably better off.
Yeah. I mean, I'm praying that I don't get invited. But hey, Grolkar, do you know what I'm talking about? It's the crawly thing. It jumps out of the place.
Yes, I believe you're talking about gagh.
Gagh.
Yes. One of
that's
the
the
freshest
one.
barrels we could find. It's best eaten fresh. At least that's what I'm told.
Right. Grolkar, could you tell me what it tastes like?
No, I don't think I could.
Wait a minute. You're telling me that it seems like you've never tried it yourself.
You know what? You caught me, Doctor. I haven't. Let's remedy that situation right now. Would you like a free sample of the gagh? Would you like to sample it with me?
Well, maybe we could take a look at the sample before we commit to eating it.
Yeah, Grolka kind of claps his hands, and a couple of Ferengi waiters go into the kitchen, and they come out with sort of a black barrel with Klingon markings along the side. And they open up the lid, and you see that there appear to be these writhing, slimy worms inside.
He stares at it for a little while and says, looks over to Lieutenant Jasurch. It's like, Lieutenant Jasurch, you're a brave man. And then he just clams up.
Nah. Nope. No way. Not me. Nope.
He looks over to Grolkar and says, Grolkar, you're the proprietor of this place. You go first.
He kind of screws up his courage and reaches in there and plucks out a couple of the fattest worms he could find and drops them into his mouth and chews them up. And after a moment, he says, Ferengi eat a lot of insects as part of our diet, and that really wasn't all that dissimilar from some of the food we eat on Ferenginar. I can learn to like that.
The insects. It's an arthropod. I'll just think of it as I think I'm late. I better go and report to the admiral. What do you think, Lieutenant Jasurch? Is it time for us to report back to the admiral?
I think we've got a few minutes, Doc, if you want to try some.
Oh, my Lord. And then, pressured into this predicament, he picks up one of these gaghs, and his hand trembles a bit, but he drops it in his mouth and chews on it. And he feels a little bit of a splitch. It explodes in his mouth. He's trying to hold it in, and he probably succeeds. Should I roll for it?
Yeah, give me a daring plus command task, difficulty 1.
I'm going to lean in towards the doc's ear and just say, "Hey, Doc, do you want me to put a call into sick bay now, or do you want to wait?"
I think he wanted sriracha sauce first.
He overcoming the urge to spit it out, he bravely manages to chomp down on it and swallows it. And it takes he takes a couple of moments, but he says, "Water," and orders some drinks.
Yep, Grelka presents you with a cup of water and says, "Not bad, right?"
Yeah, it tastes like shrimp. Yeah, just like I thought.
Hey,
Yes.
if you say so. But I liked it.
Yeah, it's great. I'm ready. I think I'll be able to handle it if I get invited.
Okay, well, we'll keep these babies alive until our Klingon guests arrive.
Thank you, Grokar.
You know what, Doc? A little bit of advice for you. When a guy who eats insects tells you that worms taste good, it's time to leave.
Well, yeah, let's report back.
Awesome. That was really fun, guys. So we will cut back to the office of the Admiral, Admiral Chithanis, and she is once again sitting behind her desk, and she says, "All right, gentlemen, what do you have to report for me to prepare for the arrival of the Geek Tal?"
Basically, I have checked with Starbase fleet databases on Captain Klan. To begin with, he is actually recently promoted. Basically, was chosen for this position by a general that served on the POC, a Klingon bird of prey. He seems to be pretty much a by-the-books person. More importantly, comes from an honorable house in Kronos. He disavowed his father because his father chose retirement over a suicidal endeavor to earn honor.
Well, they certainly have their own ideas about family, but thank you. That's a thorough report, Lieutenant Commander, and I appreciate all of that info. That might come in handy during our conversations.
Mm-hmm. We also were able to secure, and security is doing spot checks on Broca's establishment. With the aid of Lieutenant the Church, we were able to spot a listening device. Knowing Grelka, that is not the only one.
Yeah, I'd be disappointed if it were. Sometimes I hate doing business with that little Ferengi, but his restaurant does have the best view on the concourse.
It's a relationship, Admiral. And I step back and let the others report.
So, yeah, the security team and myself, we've done a sweep of the restaurant. We've, as has been noted, we found a listening device there. It's probably not the only one, but the security teams are going to go back and do spot checks. We've also done a structural analysis of the restaurant and made sure there are no explosive devices or other engineering or structural issues. I've worked with the tactical and operations teams to boost our sensors for detecting cloaked ships. So if the Klingons turn up cloaked, we've at least got a good chance of detecting them. And I've also done a quick tactical analysis with the security teams. One recommendation is that the Negvar class apparently is very poor at targeting small ships at close range. So should we need to take any offensive action against the Klingons, that's certainly one recommendation from the tactical teams.
I hope it doesn't come to that, Lieutenant, but that is also valuable information to know. Thank you.
Admiral, I identified 3 different strains that may become problematic should the Klingons encounter our guests at the medical lab. But rest assured, they're being quarantined. And I had a chance to strengthen our biofilter, so I don't feel that there would be a substantial problem. I'm currently working on developing the vaccine, modifying the existing vaccines for Klingon physiology. I've had some success, but I still need a little bit more time. And I feel that once they're on board, before it's too late, I should be able to have that ready.
Yeah, I wish we would have had a little more time to prepare for this as well, but Starfleet was pretty adamant that this sort of diplomatic operation needs to move forward to strengthen our ties with the Empire, especially as we continue to note an increase in traffic and subterfuge coming from Romulan space. So your efforts are appreciated, Doctor. I wish I could give you more time, but unfortunately, I think this is the timetable that we're going to have to work with. So if there's nothing else, I think we should probably get down to the docking ring for the Geek Tal's arrival.
Understood. I shall have security be prepared.
Thank you. Dress uniforms, of course. We will put on our best face and put on the best show we can for Captain Clag and his honor guard.
Admiral, am I expected down there as well?
Yes.
Well, of course, Doctor.
I'm just concerned about that.
Why wouldn't you be?
I'm just concerned about the vaccines and, well, Klingons are a little bit intimidating to me. But I'll be all right.
My advice, Doctor, is don't give an inch. If you show them a little bit of weakness, they will exploit it.
All right. I'll do what I can, sir.
I know you will.
I've had my first gagh after all.
Oh, you're brave enough to try Grelka's gagh. What did you think?
I would say it tastes like chicken. Or shrimp.
I'm unfamiliar with chicken.
Well, it's a little bird about the size of a small puppy, about this big, down in Earth. But anyway, it tastes like something that's foreign to you. Everything else that's not specifically strong in its flavor tastes like chicken. I think that's a good description.
Am I to gather, Doctor, that on Earth you eat little puppies? You know what? That's neither here nor there. Let's get ready for the arrival of the Geek Tal.
Cool.
Yes, sir.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead, Miguel.
Oh, no. I was about to suggest give a look at the chief medical officer, like, oh, okay. Looks like he tried out gagh. But that's just it. So,
okay. So Admiral Chithanis adjourns the meeting, and you guys have been ordered to don your dress uniforms and get ready to receive Captain Clag and his honor guard. So you guys can see from the observation windows of the Starbase this rather large battleship kind of loom into view. It's not cloaked. It drops out of warp fairly close to the station and kind of does a lap around the station in a very sort of dramatic way, and then slowly docks with one of the main docking ports of the station. And you see these large doors kind of roll aside. A few minutes later, there's kind of a hiss of air, and these 7 large Klingons pass through the biofilters onto the station. The one in the lead is obviously Captain Clag. He's like probably just under 7 feet tall, wide shoulders, very imposing looking. They don't seem to be carrying disruptors. That would be against policy, but they do have ceremonial weapons like diktak daggers and things of that nature. And Captain Clag steps forward. You guys would be standing next to Admiral Chithanis and probably some security officers as well as part of your contingent. And Captain Clag salutes you and says, I am Captain Clag of the battleship Geek Tal, I'm sorry.
mm-hmm. I assume I briefed the Admiral on the appropriate response on what to say to him.
Yeah. So, I mean, would any of you guys care to sort of role play for the admiral, or do you just want to kind of hand wave that stuff? It's up to you.
I think it would be fun to hand wave it. I would probably do along the lines of like how, what is it, in Star Trek 2, where they start yelling out Captain on deck and all that? Or Admiral on deck?
Yeah. So, yep. So,
what I assume my guy is doing.
Yeah. So you shout out, we'll say Klingon commander on deck. Yeah, and a bosun kind of blows his whistle, does the, exactly. And you guys would be able to usher them into the Starview Cafe as the admiral and the captain, the Klingon captain, sort of lead the way, engaged in kind of sterile but mostly pleasant conversation as they go. And so it'd be you guys kind of walking with these rather large Klingon warriors in the back. What do you guys think about that? What's going through your minds?
I'm probably a relatively short Andorian, so I'm kind of keeping a wary eye on these big guys. But as a good junior officer, I speak when spoken to.
Yeah, these guys don't say much. They're very stern looking.
The good doctor avoids their stares, but at the same time, he puffs himself up and tries to look as big as possible. And he stomps as he walks down the corridor.
Okay, give me a presence plus command task, difficulty 1.
Okay. Yeah, he makes it.
Okay, you notice that they sort of eye you kind of up and down slowly and seem to, they don't say anything, of course, but they sort of regard you with maybe some respect.
Nice.
Well, it's basically back to business of the diplomatic security stint on Chrono. So basically keeping pace with these Klingon honor guard, all of that. And in case they ask questions, especially in Klingon, I respond in Klingon to them about anything they have.
Yeah, so this impresses them. So as you guys come into the Starview Cafe, it actually the place has been kind of rented out. There's no other patrons there, but there's a large table in the lower section of the dining area. It's been set up with a pleasing spread of food from across the Alpha and Beta quadrants, with a heavy emphasis on Klingon food. You guys all sit down to the banquet. You say a few words in Klingon, and your guests kind of nod in approval, maybe even look a little surprised as you do so. What do you guys talk about, or how do you act as this diplomatic dinner, the state dinner, proceeds?
So are we serving Klingon food?
There is Klingon fare available, but there's also food from other regions of the quadrant as well.
I think I'll be sticking to Andorian food. I didn't much like the doc's experience with the gagh.
Okay, good to know. Good to know. One of the Klingons that you're sitting next to says, I noticed you didn't take the gagh, Lieutenant. It is fresh. It is not the best I've ever had, but it is fresh.
I find it's better for warriors. I'm not a warrior. I'm an engineer.
Well, that is unfortunate. And from that point on, he doesn't really acknowledge you. He kind of looks right past you the rest of the evening.
I'm actually kind of happy with that.
The doctor looks at one of the Klingon warriors that are sitting next to him and says, "Have you ever tried the earthly cuisine of live octopus?" And he looks at him.
I'm unfamiliar with octopus.
Octopus is this cephalopod, this slimy creature that we have and in our ocean. And some parts of the world on our planet, folks eat them without cooking them. They bring it out, they chop the tentacles up, and they dip it into what was it? The sesame oil and some salt, and we just eat it alive. Have you ever tried that before?
I have not, but it is not dissimilar from some Klingon customs in which we devour our food still living in its own blood.
Yes. Hold on a second. Grolkar.
He kind of pads up to you and says, yes, doctor, how can I help you?
Grolkar, do you have any earth octopus? You know, like the type that Japanese and Koreans eat in Earth?
I don't have any in the kitchen. I could, of course, have it replicated for you.
I need one alive. I've eaten one before, and it was really difficult, but I actually pulled it off before, so I want to impress these guys. So could you whip up something like that?
Yes, let me, for you, doctor, because I know you come in and order a drink or two on occasion, I will go down to one of the markets, a couple doors down the concourse, and see if I can find something.
One more thing, make sure that it's not too large. You know, those are pretty disgusting. So I want it to be manageable. You know what I'm saying, right?
I think I do, doctor. Yes. And he,
Great.
he sends off one of his waiters down to the market.
He turns to the Klingon warrior sitting next to him and says, yes, I have one of our proprietor. Bring it over to us, and I shall demonstrate to you how to eat it. And then he nods. Yeah,
a few minutes later, Grelka comes back out with a dish with this octopus, and he says, "Look, I this wasn't something that my chefs are necessarily trained to do, but here you go. We did the best we could." Nope, did we lose Yong?
He saw the octopus and retched.
Okay, well, we'll shift over to either of you guys. What about Lieutenant Commander Holm? What are you doing throughout this dinner?
Oh my God. If this is Klingon, they're talking about high culture, which is Shakespeare. So basically, having a quote from Hamlet, all of that, and then talking to them about how Starbase 23 also has theater facilities too. We have certain recreation of Shakespeare plays going on. We are going to be doing, actually, Titus Andronicus.
Captain Clag, go ahead, I'm sorry.
Yeah, Titus Andronicus, which I'm sure you're familiar with. It has a sort of macabre scene of, if I recall, the evil woman eating her own children in a pie.
Yeah, Captain Clag overhears you talking about this, and he says, "It is a well-known fact that you have not experienced Shakespeare until you've read it in the original Klingon translations."
Ah, but Shakespeare is supposed to be experienced on the stage. It's one thing to read it; it's another thing to watch it.
Perhaps, if there is time, I will subject myself to this production.
Okay, indeed. Especially because last year they did make... what was the one thing? King Lear. An excellent, excellent rendition of that.
King Lear is among my favorites. We Klingons are... our history is replete with family members fighting amongst themselves for power on the High Council.
Indeed. There is certain something about the Bard that is universal.
Indeed. We Klingons have the physical bodies of a warrior, but we have the soul of a poet.
Indeed. I didn't make mention of the various Klingon operas that might be now coming in. There is now a more permanent contingent here. And we also have a Klingon punk rock establishment on this starbase too.
Ah, I will be sure to, perhaps with your admiral's leave, I could grant some of my crew to experience your hospitality on this concourse.
as bereft our two nations, Federation and the Klingons.
And so the waiter returns with the octopus and explains that our chef doesn't have experience with this kind of thing. This isn't on our menu. We did the best we could. I hope this is suitable for you, Doctor.
The doctor looks at it, and it's not what he was expecting. Instead of getting one of those white, small, little octopuses, they actually brought out those purple, larger ones. And the doctor doesn't necessarily know how to eat it, but he's going to try anyways.
Yeah, I mean, you can narrate for me what you think.
So he says, "All right, this is how you eat it." and he grabs one of those sliced tentacles. It's still wiggling around, and looks at it. He dips it in the sauce and plops it into his mouth. But as he does so, one of the tentacles attached to the side of his face, and the doctor pries it open, pries it out of his face, and then sucks it in like that. And he bites it down and chews on it, and finally guzzles it down along with one of the drinks that are provided, and looks at the Klingon in the eye and does his best to look as menacing and intimidating as possible.
Yeah, the Klingon immediately wants to answer your challenge, and so he grabs some of this octopus and shoves it down his gullet as well. And he waits a couple of beats and thinks, and he says, "It is delicious."
It is, right?
A warrior's meal.
Yes, warrior's meal. Excuse me. And then he drinks some beer or ale that's right next to him.
Yeah, so as the evening goes on, Lieutenant Commander Holm and Dr. Stanislov, you manage to perhaps cement some sort of personal ties with your guests. Lieutenant Chisurch, not so much. You're just sort of ignored most of the night. They sort of look over you because they're all a lot taller than you as well. As the evening starts to draw to a close, Captain Clegg stands and he says, "Admiral and crew, I appreciate your hospitality, but it's now time to cut to the chase, to the heart of the matter of why I've been ordered to the Starbase." And he claps his hands, and one of his, a member of his honor guard stands up and he produces some kind of mechanical device. You might recognize it as some sort of hollow emitter. And he turns it on, and a hollow image shows up. And it appears to be an intercepted transmission between Admiral Chithanis, the fleet admiral in charge of Starbase 23, and Admiral Olena Nechayev, one of Starfleet Command's lead admirals back on Earth in San Francisco. And they appear to be having a conversation about how they can spread misinformation to sow discord among some of the most powerful Klingon houses. And once the transmission is done playing, it cuts out, and Clegg says, "We have come into possession of this rather credible material that implicates you in interfering in internal Klingon politics. I demand an explanation for this. If I am not satisfied, I'm afraid our alliance will be at an end."
I lean back on my chair. Does the Admiral give me a way to answer that?
Admiral Chithanis, if you're looking at her, you see that her complexion almost becomes pale. It turns like a lighter shade of blue, and her eyes get widened. It looks like she's been taken totally by surprise. And at the same time, Clegg and his honor guard stand up, and they file out of the room, and they head back to their vessel, basically giving you a matter of hours to come up with some sort of explanation for this rather incriminating hollow footage that you've just seen.
Mm-hmm.
And so right there, yeah, go ahead and ask, and then we'll take a quick break.
I was going to suggest, Commander, I think a good first step is let's do some analysis on this recording and see if we can find out whether it's real or not.
Well, I was about to say, Lieutenant, is that we helped backgowrin. And these people are from allied houses that supported the current chancellor. Federation backgowrin. Whatever has happened here is that they are trying to change the narrative of that, especially because the Federation does not try to do this sort of subterfuge.
Yep. But I suspect a Romulan presence here. This would be just like the Romulans to produce something like this. So I'd like to take a close look at that recording.
This information is their game, Lieutenant.
Yep.
I concur with the rest of you, but I want your word, Admiral. Is that real?
Admiral Chithanis finally puts down her napkin, folds it up, and puts it on the table, and she says, very carefully worded, that conversation that we just witnessed never took place.
That's good enough for me, Admiral.
I need you to find out how this deception was perpetrated, and I need you to come up with evidence that we can present to Captain Clag to keep this alliance intact.
I'll work on that with the engineering and security teams.
Cool. We'll cut the scene there, and we'll take maybe a 5-minute break. When we come back, you guys will have 3 points of momentum at your disposal, and you guys can try and find out what you can about this hollow image.
Okay, cool.
Cool. Thanks, guys. I'll be right back. I gotta get another beer and go potty.
Cool. And I'm gonna get some coffee.
I'm back.
Oh, same.
Cool. Yeah, I'm ready to go. I think right now we're just waiting for Paul, and we will jump right back in. I love the gagh scene, Yong. That was awesome.
Yeah, I'm actually eating gagh in real life, guys. It's awesome.
Delicious.
Yeah, I put on my pasta in the microwave, and while that was running, I was talking about gagh.
Make a couple notes here. Okay, we got Paul back. Did we just lose Yong again?
No.
Oh,
He just doesn't want to see people eat.
Okay, cool. Mighty polite of you, Yong. Okay, cool. I think we're all back. Okay, so we'll jump back in. Just to sort of reset the stage for you guys, you had just had a banquet with 7 Klingons, led by Captain Clag of the Negvar-class warship Geek-Tal. Things seem to be proceeding fairly well up until Clag announced his real reason for this visit, and he produced holographic image that appeared to be an intercepted transmission of your commanding officer, Admiral Chithanis, having a conversation with Admiral Elena Nechayev, and they were talking about potential plans by Starfleet to plant false information that would sow discord among influential houses on the Klingon High Council. The Klingons didn't explain how they came into possession of this information. They simply demanded an explanation of this imagery. Clag, before he ordered his men to get up and leave and return to their vessel, he did leave you the, I forgot to mention this, but he left the isolinear rod containing the data, containing this holographic information. And so you asked Admiral Chithanis if this was accurate, if this was real, this is a real transmission. He very carefully worded that this was not, that conversation did not take place.
Aha, can I check her body language about that?
Absolutely, you can. Give me give me insight plus security, since you're sort of used to making interrogations.
Yeah, my focus is in interrogation, so I guess I use my focus of under 5, so we'll see.
Yeah, so this will be difficulty 2. You are looking at an experienced flag officer who's probably pretty used to speaking in front of people and not giving away too much information.
I spent a momentum and I got 3.
Okay, cool. So you then get that momentum back. You sense from her body language that she was genuinely surprised by this footage. You also sense that the careful wording of her response was truthful, but you feel like she's definitely leaving something out. She's not telling you something.
Okay, this goes with my values of holding everyone to the highest standards, and well, the Federation has a policy of non-intervention, doesn't it?
Yes, of course.
The only reason the Federation got involved in the Klingon Civil War was because of the they wanted to showcase that the Romulans were involved in it. With a certain command, Captain Data, if I recall.
Yes, that was a harrowing crisis for all of us, and an important reason for why we uphold the Prime Directive in the first place. Is there something that you want to say, Lieutenant Commander?
This could be very dangerous here. We both know how volatile the Klingon Empire is, and if they suspect that the Federation does not have good intentions for them, because there are always those that will always cast suspicion on us. This could be very bad.
I absolutely agree, Lieutenant Commander Holm, and that is precisely why I need you to work together to find out exactly how that footage was forged, and I need you to put together some kind of report that's going to persuade Clag that that's a fake. That it's a fake!
Yes. Fake. If I may have your permission, Admiral, I would like to do a survey of your quarters with the aid of the lieutenant to ensure that there might have been something that would have doctored it in, because we might have had someone infiltrate.
Permission denied, Commander. I need you to run an analysis on that isolinear chip first. If I feel there's information that you need, I will give it to you at that point.
Understood, Admiral.
Is there something that you're accusing me of, Lieutenant Commander Holm?
None whatsoever, Admiral.
Very good.
Okay. You beg my pardon. I will dismiss myself and get straight to work.
Snap to it, gentlemen. We have a diplomatic crisis to diffuse.
So I'm going to start taking a look at the recording on that data chip.
I'm going to be hanging out with you, Lieutenant.
I want to look at things like time codes. I want to look at the makeup of the recording. I want to look at whether anything in that recording has been faked at all, whether anything on there is computer generated. Yep.
So I would imagine you'd probably take it to some kind of science lab on the Starbase. You've got this isolinear rod. Looking it over, it does indeed look to you like a Starfleet issue isolinear rod. If you want to conduct further analysis on it, you'll have to make some kind of task.
Okay, so we're probably talking, regional science, regional engineering.
Okay, and how can I help
here?
Yeah,
I think that makes sense. Yep, someone can assist.
Yes, I have the focus of espionage too, so.
That could certainly apply.
Yes, so what do I roll here to assist?
Okay, well, so this will be a difficulty 3 task. Lieutenant Research, you'll be rolling, what do we say, reason plus engineering? Is that what you said?
Yep, I'm good with either reason plus engineering or reason plus science. Engineering's the better one.
Okay, you can do engineering. And Lieutenant Commander Holm, you're sort of overseeing this as the security chief of the station. This is certainly a security issue. You're looking for telltale signs of espionage. So I'm going to say that's probably like insight or presence. You can pick plus security to.
Okay, so I'll be rolling 1d20,
so,
a single d20, yep. And we'll see if I get it under a 15. Right on the nose.
Okay, so there's one of your 3 successes. Lieutenant Research, you need 2 more. You've got 3 points of momentum at your disposal, and you can also paint a threat if you like.
I'll go for it. I mean, we're in a different scene now, so I can be cautious again. So that'll give me an extra die 20 anyway.
Okay.
And because it's critical, I'll throw in a point of momentum. So we'll go for 4 die 20.
Okay, cool.
And we will hope that this works.
So yeah, you're being very careful as you sort of load up this this data rod and start going through the footage on the computer. You know, just like microsecond by microsecond, looking for any valuable information.
Yep. So I'm looking for 15s. So I have an 11, an 11, a 4, and a 2. So that's 2 that are under my engineering discipline. So that's 4 successes plus another 2, so that's 6.
6 successes plus the 1 from Lieutenant Commander Holm, so it's a total of 7. You need 3, so you generate 4 points of momentum. You now have a full momentum pool.
Oh.
6 points of momentum at your disposal.
Hey.
And you are, in fact, able to determine that there's something fishy about this. First of all, the data rod appears to be, it does appear to be Starfleet issue. Of that, there's no question. However, it's of an older model than what the Stardate stamp was on this transmission. So you're thinking that this this data chip probably was stolen or otherwise taken, and then this information was implanted on it. You also think that this holographic image is a forgery, although a very good one.
And presumably we have the data from the analysis to prove that.
Yeah. Yeah, you think you can narrate for me what it is about your discovery that leads you to believe that this is fake.
Well, I think if we're faking a holographic recording, then it would have to be something in the recording that's computer generated, or at least has been modified on a computer. So there'll be some level of, how can I put it, too much perfection to the data. It won't be realistic enough. Yeah.
Especially in its simulation of the characters involved. There's certain character text and all that, and you notice is that our admiral sort of has this going on a lot more often.
Yeah, it might be that
Right
certain portions of the recording or the characters in it have been edited together from different recordings, and there's kind of a little bit of data patchwork between them to make them match.
Yeah, absolutely. So you realize that this is kind of, like you said, a patchwork. Some of it does appear to be genuine, but that leads you to believe that there is some sort of leak somewhere along the line, that real data has been leaked out, but it's definitely been edited together, and some of it totally fabricated to sort of create this more cohesive back and forth conversation between these two admirals planning out this disinformation campaign.
So I've got a problem for the commander.
Mm-hmm.
So we've done this analysis. We've shown that this recording is most likely a fake of some sort.
Yes.
Why
But
didn't the
these
Klingons
conversations have happened sporadically?
Right, but why didn't the Klingons find that out? Did they miss something? Did they miss something that we caught? Or do they know that it's a fake?
The Klingon Empire is very volatile. They also have a culture of distrusting those that are of the science persuasion. Despite the fact they have advanced weaponry and all that, those of not the warrior caste tend to be looked down upon, Lieutenant. So it is no surprise that they would not have done this sort of thorough research.
Okay, I'm going to leave it to you to explain to them why they failed to detect it's a fake then.
Well, the thing is, though, is that these conversations did happen, and we do have a leak.
Mm.
We need to figure out the leak first before we even go talk with the captain.
Do we need to do some more analysis just to figure out which parts of these conversations we think are real and which might have been, shall we say, dubbed?
No, you've already figured that out with your task. You think that the bits that there have definitely been a series of conversations between Admiral Nechayev and Admiral I'm sorry, Chithanis, Admiral Chithanis. The parts that have been fabricated are the ones talking specifically about which Klingon houses are going to be targeted, how they'll be targeted, and what sort of information will be leaked to generate this distrust. Dr. Stanislov, what are you up to right now as your colleagues go over this data? Anything in particular?
Well, he's back in the medical bay working on that vaccine.
Okay. You think that so here's the problem that you keep running into. It's almost like the Klingon, the viruses that you're looking at, these several viruses that might affect Klingons, they almost, as you analyze them and start working on a vaccine, it's like they actually change, they actually mutate almost before your eyes. So it's really hard to stay a step ahead of them. You think that it's going to take some in-depth, real medical research to if you want to solve this problem once and for all, it's not going to be with a vaccine on a particular virus. It's going to be with, once and for all, purging all of the viruses from the tissues of these children.
Okay. He believes that using some sort of radiation, he might be able to get rid of these viruses altogether.
Okay, cool. If you want to do that, that is going to be an extended task. So you've not played a lot of Star Trek Adventures, correct?
No.
Okay, so extended tasks are almost like combat. You roll the task, and if you succeed, you're going to roll some damage. And the amount of damage that you roll is what actually determines the outcome of the process. It's supposed to sort of simulate sort of in-depth, lengthy, difficult tasks.
Okay.
So if you want to initiate this, you can.
Okay. I'm going to be rolling under reason and medicine.
Yep. And so you're going to start out with a base difficulty of 3. If you roll, if you get your 3 successes, I will tell you exactly what happens. You also have a full pool of momentum at your disposal, so you can buy extra dice if you want.
Yeah, I'll spend 2.
So if you can get 1 for the first one. The second D20 costs 2, so you need to spend a total of 3 to get 2 dice.
Actually, I'll just spend 1 then.
Okay, so you get 3 dice. You need 3 successes. I need to roll under your reason plus medicine.
Okay. Makes it. And I rolled 1 for the last one.
Okay. So you generate a point of momentum back. That's 2 successes. So you get a total of 4 successes. You needed 3. Okay, the next step in this process is you're going to roll some D6s. You're going to roll equal to 2 plus your medicine discipline.
So a total of 6.
Okay, so roll 6 D6s and then tell me what you get.
I got 1,
okay,
3,
okay,
4,
okay,
5, and I think I need to do 1 more. 1.
Yep. 1. Okay, so the 1s and the 5s and the 6s are all 1 point of what they call the work track. So you just did 4 points on the work track.
Plus 2 effects, right?
Yeah. How do effects work on extended tasks? Is that on my thing? Let me look it up for you. Just 1 second, Yong. Look at the index. Page 91, I'm told. Okay. Under normal circumstances, the challenge dice used for an extended task have no special effects, and thus each effect rolled simply counts as a 1 without any additional benefits. However, characters can obtain benefits, which will trigger when effects are rolled. If the character has multiple benefits, then all of them are triggered when an effect is rolled. Triumphant. The character achieves a breakthrough. So I will say, okay, so I will grant you the triumphant effect. If the character achieves a breakthrough and one or more effects are rolled, then an additional breakthrough is achieved. 4 points off the work track does not achieve a breakthrough. You need 5 points or better. So those effects didn't really do much for you this time, but they might on the next one. So you now need to do that same task again, but the base difficulty drops from 3 to 2 because you've been successful.
Rolls 3. 10. He makes it twice.
Okay.
And I need to do what was it? 6 d6s again.
Yep, same thing.
1.
Okay.
2. 2. 1. 6. 6.
Okay, so that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, and plus an effect. Okay, so 8 will. That will be 2 breakthroughs. You need a total, and you've now marked off 12 points on the work track. You need 2 more breakthroughs. And you get 1, and so do the same thing over again, basically.
Okay.
You've marked 12 points of the 14 off the work track, so you're getting close, but you need 2 more breakthroughs.
Okay. This time I'm gonna spend momentum.
Okay. Yeah, 4 points of momentum.
2. 11. Yeah, he makes it all the way. He's trying to roll under 15, so it's been pretty good.
Yep. And so you
66.
generate those difficulty 1, and you got 3 successes, so you get 2 points of momentum back. And you, roll your 66 throughs.
1, 6, 3, 4, 6. One more, right? 6.
Okay. So that's 4 points off the work track, which completes the work track, which is a breakthrough. Plus you had your effect, which is another breakthrough. So you got the 2 breakthroughs that you needed. You have succeeded on the extended task. You feel like using your radiation therapy, you have found a way to rid these children's tissues of all of these Romulan engineered viruses.
Yes.
How does Dr. Stanislov respond to that? That was a nice bit of doctoring.
He sits back on his chair and goes, "Oh, yeah, good stuff." And he looks at the children and says, "All right, kids, I think you could go out there and do your kid stuff, whatever that is." And that's how he responds.
Yeah, they almost don't even understand what kid stuff is. They've never had kid stuff before in their 10 years of existence.
I think I need to call Lieutenant Research again. Or maybe there's a daycare on this starbase. I got to do something to well, I'll find you something to do, kids. And he looks at them and then walks away.
Yeah, so one of the male version of Marin would say at the mention of Lieutenant Research, who rescued him from a freighter that was almost on the verge of an explosion, would say, "Yeah, please tell Lieutenant Research. I'd really like to hear what he has to say about this. And thank you, Doctor."
Hey, no problem. No problem at all. And I go off to find Lieutenant Research.
Yeah, so you make your way through the station and find both Lieutenant Research and Lieutenant Commander Holm in one of the science labs going over this forged hollow imagery.
Lieutenant Commander Holm, how's the work going? Have we found anything?
We found a lot here, apparently. This is a splice together of various conversations, edited into one holographic video.
I see. It was definitely doctored, right? As for the location where these folks might have gotten the data rod, do you have any idea?
I'm about to start looking into that. The data rod itself is an older Federation model, but it seems to be various transmissions that have gone for several years.
All right. Well, I got a good news for you both.
Oh,
For the kids, I was able to remove all the virulent strains from our guests at the medbay. What I did was I modified the teleporter, and I basically, well, I didn't actually do any engineering, but I used the radiation therapy to get rid of all the virulent strains. And the kids are free to roam about. They're free of any pathogens at this point.
well, good news is always appreciated, especially during this time.
Yeah, I'm just glad that kids are not posing any threats to the Klingons either. It would be disastrous if we're the ones that somehow were to cause disease or outbreak amongst the Klingons. That would have been detrimental.
And of course.
Marin, he was really thrilled to hear your name, Lieutenant Jasurge. Maybe you should go and visit him. I'm just terrible at dealing with these children. I can't relate to them, What do they do, really?
I find it kind of hard to relate to them as well. And I've been down to visit him a couple of times, and I'll definitely go once we've finished the analysis here. There are a couple more things I want to look into, though.
Is there anything that I could help you with?
It depends.
Yes, of course. We can always use
your rods.
Yes, especially another set of eyes.
Yeah.
Yeah, what do we need?
Well, there's a couple of things I want to look into. I mean, we know the rod itself is an old Federation model, but I want to take a look and see if there are anything like serial numbers or production numbers or anything that we might be able to use to trace where the rod came from.
We could ask the Klingons.
I want to look for data. I don't want opinion from the Klingons. I want solid facts.
Well, we could.
Sorry,
yeah, go ahead.
I want to take a look at the recording as well. We know that parts of it were fake, but I want to see if there's any kind of signature in the recording, anything that may indicate a technique or a particular type of device that was used to manufacture the recording, something that might
and a timestamp so that we may be able to see the other transmissions these were pulled from.
Yeah, I'm looking more for the signature of how this thing was patched together, whether it was a particular type of device or a particular make or a particular origin of device that might have generated the recording.
Yes. So you've established pretty well that this is a forgery. To figure out more about how it was forged and perhaps who did it, that'll require another task, another difficulty 3 task. And you can narrate however you like about how you go about finding that information. Particularly, you mentioned a signature. Who might have the capability of putting something like this together?
Indeed, and maybe it might not even be from here. It might also be on the other end too.
Yeah, I'm looking at the parts of the recording that have either been faked or the way that the recording has been patched together.
We could also look at the data rod itself, considering that it's an older model. For this fake forgery to have been made, there had to be some sort of a contact between the original data rod and whoever forged it.
That's why I was thinking, looking for some kind of serial number or production number to find out where the rod actually came from.
Yes, I'd be glad to assist here, Lieutenant, but I think I need to get in contact with Klang and get into his ship and have a discussion with him. I need to figure out how he was able to acquire this.
Yeah, to get aboard the Greek Tau is going to take some convincing. How would you go about that?
Well, this is along the lines of I stand as the part of the party of the accused, and I am here to adjudicate all of this. So I am here to gather up questions, if you will so let me.
So you get sort of an audio-only transmission from Captain Clegg, and he says, "It would be dishonorable not to allow you to speak your piece. You may come aboard."
Indeed. Okay. I assume he's going to take me to a private quarter so we can have a very frank discussion.
"Oh no, you may speak in front of my crew. Anything that you would say to me, you could say to any member of my crew." So
Okay.
you're standing kind of on the bridge of this huge battleship. The light is it's much dimmer than you're used to on a Federation starbase. There's kind of a red tint to it. Several different levels of bridge equipment, things like that. Your boots kind of clang on the bare metal deck.
Yes. It's not a Klingon bird of prey, but it'll do. Okay, well then I start to talk with him about all of this, but before I do, I need to figure out, Captain, how were you able to acquire this?
It was presented to us by a concerned party.
Uh-huh. Do pray tell, who was this concerned party?
I am not interested in revealing my sources. I am interested in a Starfleet explanation for the data contained on that rod.
Because the rod itself is very old. Appears to be a out-of-print model, so to speak.
That makes no difference to me. That sounds like Federation prevarication. Didn't mean for that to rhyme, but it did.
Indeed, indeed. Well, I think you can also assume from my body language is that I am a bit teed up, not with the Klingons, but with all of this happening. This is because one of my values is, of course, holding the Federation to the highest standard. So I hold everyone to a sort of top standard of you better be on your best behavior. So yeah. Well done.
Yeah, give me a presence plus command task. Ordinarily, it'd be difficulty 2. I'm going to spend 2 points of threat to make it a difficulty 3 task. And okay. You, because these Klingon, you're surrounded by Klingons on their bridge, and it's a fairly, this is not an audience that's all that interested in what you have to say. So you're going to need to convince them to listen to reason. This is not a sympathetic audience, as they say.
This is important. So I'm spending a determination. I think the veteran ability allows me to do something here.
Yep. So determination, if you have a value that sort of applies to the situation, you can spend a point of determination, which is automatically assumed to roll a critical success. So you'd get 2 successes automatically.
Yeah, this actually applies to my values. I have the values of Starfleet is a high ideal, then everything to the highest standard. So basically, I'm going to let him know is that the Federation does not interfere in foreign governments at all, especially because we were able to showcase that the House Jura was responsible, only was gaining power during the Civil War with the aid of the Romulans. Why would we want to destabilize a good partner that we were very fortunate enough to have, especially during the Khitomer Accords? To destroy that would be bad. So I am going to spend, let's see, 3 momentum to get 2 dice here.
Okay.
So it'll be 4d20.
You have 3 left.
I am rolling presence and con.
Presence and command, and you need since you've already spent a determination, you need just 1 success on any of your dice.
Okay, I got 2 successes, 11 and a 2.
Okay, so you get a point of momentum back, and the speech seems
to my focus of Klingon culture, right?
Sure, yeah. If you want, as you're on the bridge of this this battleship, and you sort of understand the Klingon norms and etiquette for such a situation, and you apply that to this passionate speech that you make. Sure.
Yeah, it's 3 successes done. I got it too.
Okay. an additional point of momentum. So you now have 5 points of momentum, and your speech has an impact. Coming into this meeting, Captain Clegg had 2 traits, one of which was suspicious of Starfleet's motives. And your impassioned speech was enough to convince him that Starfleet's motives, at least your motives, are pure. That even if he's not convinced that the hollow footage is a fake, but he is convinced that if Admiral Chithanis was saying this, she wasn't acting on behalf of all of Starfleet. The Starfleet really does want an alliance with the Empire, and so that removes that particular trait. There's still another trait that you'll have to somehow convince him of something else to get the optimal results out of this. But you've made some headway,
especially with this crew that realizes that I am acting on the best interest of diplomacy right here.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
If nothing else, they think that you are being honest and that you have no reason to deceive them, and you want to preserve the alliance between the Federation and the Klingons.
So
Captain Clegg says, I appreciate your honesty. Present me with proof that this is some sort of deception, and perhaps I will return to the High Council and recommend that we continue our alliance with Starfleet.
Understood, Captain. If you would, I will take my leave.
By all means, Lieutenant Commander.
Good. And I walk out. And then I'm going to go up and meet up with the lieutenant and the doctor, let them know. Well, I was not able to get much further with them, but they at least know of our good intentions.
Well, Lieutenant Commander, it seems like we have enough here to convince that this was a forgery. We could just simply present that to our admiral and have her reported over to their Captain Clegg.
True, but we need to figure out how this got leaked. We need to be very, very thorough, Doctor.
What are your feelings about Captain Clegg? Is he trustworthy?
He is an honorable man in terms of Klingon culture. They are very direct, do not like any sort of deception whatsoever. As long as you deal with a Klingon honestly, they'll respect you. There are going to be those that have wary feelings about the Federation, believing that the peace makes them weak. But there are also those that realize that the Klingon Empire would not have survived if it wasn't for the Khitomer Accords, which I'm sure you're familiar with in your history class.
Yes. Did the Captain Clegg mention to you where he received that data rod?
He says his sources are kept. He wanted to keep his sources hidden.
Maybe we could persuade him that this is a forgery first. That would earn his trust, and he might be willing to cooperate with us in exposing where the forgery came from.
Mm-hmm. Lieutenant, have you gotten any closer to identifying any sort of origins on it?
Funny you would say that. I was just taking a look at that. So I'm going to see if I can get an assist from the station's computers. Would I be able to do that?
Yeah, you bet. Someone want to roll for the station? This will be computers plus. What exactly are you trying to find out, Paul?
Like I say, I'm trying to look at the parts of the recording that have been patched to see if there's any possible signature in there that might tell me the kind of computer or the kind of equipment that was used to patch the recording together.
Yeah, I'm going to say that's computers plus I would say either engineering or science, which are both the same score for the Starbase. So it'll be someone can roll for the Starbase. It'll be a target number of 14.
I'm sorry, I got 20.
Ooh, thank you.
It's not a fake.
Okay, so the station rolls a complication. Paul, You still need 3 successes.
Okay, so does that count as an assist then? Because when I'm aided by sensors or computers, I can re-roll one of my die 20s. I use my technical expertise. So does that count as
you can roll one of your dice pool. Yes.
Okay.
Can I also assist?
Sure. Yeah, because you can all kind of stand around the these different consoles in the science lab. Sure.
Yeah, sure. 1d20. This is going to be security and I guess insight. So just look at that and let's see if I
Yeah,
can.
that'll work.
4.
Okay.
2 successes.
Okay, you've got 2 of your 3 successes plus a complication. Okay. Paul?
I'm going to buy an extra die 20 then.
Okay, you got 4 points of momentum still. You need 1 success.
Just to be sure then. 2, 5, and 17. So that's 4 successes.
4 successes. So you get 2 points of momentum back.
Oh, sorry, beg your pardon. 3 successes. Beg your pardon.
Okay, you get 2 points of momentum back. Back up to 4. Or back up to 6, I'm sorry. Or no, back up to 6. I'm right.
Can I assist as well?
All successes.
No. the station tried to assist. He got an assist from his comrade. That's all the assisting I'm going to allow. But you guys are able to successfully complete the task. And you, as you analyze this data, and especially as your chief of security sort of works with you to look at, the fingerprints of what's going on here with this forgery, you come back to some Starfleet security files related to a rather shady character known in criminal circles as a particularly good holographic artist, and his name is Grathon Tolar. And you feel like only he would probably be about the only person you're aware of that would be capable of putting together this kind of deception that could fool these Klingons.
Oh, it's good. At least.
But the complication, even though Paul, you've been very cautious in your handling of this this data chip, somehow you trigger some kind of fail-safe, causing some kind of energy feedback that fries the chip, fries the isolinear rod, and you'll be able to conduct no further analysis of it.
Okay, so Lieutenant Commander, I've got good news and I've got bad news. The good news is I've got a pretty good idea of who forged this. The bad news is you're going to have to explain to the captain what happened to the data chip.
And what happened to the data chip, Lieutenant?
Yeah, there was a slight accident and it's fried.
I'll pause for a moment, nod, and just be like, okay, but we have moved forward. So you know the identity of the person involved?
The forgery carried a particular signature, which I've been able to match up with security records. So
Okay,
yes, we've got a very good idea of who carried out the forgery.
Well, then we have our next step. I think we were able to gather up everything we could from that chip anyway.
Yep, I'll let you explain to the Klingon captain what happened.
Okay, good. So, guess we're going to have to do a sort of a research to figure out what's up with Grathon Tolar before we get going. The greatest holographic forger in, I guess, the quadrant.
Yeah, you conduct Starfleet security files. There really isn't a whole lot on him because he's currently at large, but he's a well-known holographic artist, particularly in uses of illicit activity. And this looks like it has all the hallmarks of his work. You feel pretty confident in suggesting to the Klingons that this is his handiwork.
Mm-hmm. And were we able to make backups of all the data?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Good.
That would have been done as a matter of course.
Okay, good. I'm being completely amateur to say, like, yeah, it was a fake, but we lost all the evidence.
Right. That would be a difficult situation.
Okay. Now we need to figure out why whoever hired this Grayfon Polar to do this. So I'm going to go in and talk with the captain, let him know about our findings, and we'll see about what happens next.
Do we need to bring the admiral into this first?
What is proper protocol? Escalate to the admiral, or does the admiral give me free rein to try to assuage the situation?
You can tell me, man. I want you guys to be the stars.
Well,
Okay.
Lieutenant Commander, I recall the admiral saying that she wants a report of our findings. So I think the procedure would be to report to her first.
Mm-hmm. Sorry about that. I usually am on top of this protocol, so let us go ahead and report to the admiral right away. Do not worry,
Yes,
Lieutenant. We gathered all we could from the isolinear rod, so there's going to be no repercussions for that other than the fact we can further investigate with it.
Yeah, so you guys report to Admiral Chithanis, and she says that you've done good work. It looks like you've established beyond the shadow of a doubt what we knew to be the truth, that that these images were forgeries. Lieutenant Commander Holm, you seem to have established some kind of rapport with Captain Clegg. I will attend the meeting, but I would like you to head the report, and hopefully we can convince him that this has all been some kind of ruse and that the Federation-Klingon alliance must continue.
Indeed.
Admiral?
I will get everything prepared.
Yes,
and,
on my end, I just wanted to report that the guests are pathogen-free. Those two children are free of any pathogens, and they pose no threat to any of us.
That's excellent work, Doctor. That must have taken some doing on your part.
Oh, well, it was a good motivation having those children in the medical lab. After all, medical lab is my second home, and I just wanted to be as professional as possible.
I'll make a report to Starfleet Command. I'm not sure what they will want done with the children as the products of what we think is a Tal Shiar plot. I can't simply release them. They will have to remain on the station for some more time until Starfleet Command can make an official decision. But excellent work, Doctor.
Admiral?
Thank you.
I would suggest we also get in contact with Cassia. I think she would be very overjoyed to hear this.
Looking at her the flight plans that she has logged, it looks like she will be back on the station within a few days, and I will leave it to you to apprise her of the situation.
Indeed. Thank you. I'll get everything set up within the hour.
Okay, cool. So where do you guys want to meet Captain Clegg to present your evidence?
I think it would showcase willingness of the Federation if we go on board their ship again.
Cool. He would insist that.
Yeah, basically, because
you come.
We slighted the Klingons, and it would showcase sort of a courage on our part to go onto their ship, knowing that it is a very dangerous thing.
Captain Clegg once again would insist that you come onto the bridge of the Geek Tal and speak your piece in front of both himself and his bridge crew. He keeps no secrets from them.
Good. Well then, I basically am able to operate the console, correct? I'm able to at least interface it with our data pad and get things going, showcasing our findings. Not only was the isolinear rod outdated, it seems to have been forged by an individual known as Grayfon Polar, who is known in the criminal underworld for modifying holographic images, splicing them together and all that.
Captain Clegg looks over your evidence and seems to nod. To convince him, you're going to have to complete a task. This was going to be a difficulty 3 task, but because you've presented evidence to him, which is one of the social conflict tools that the game book lists, that will reduce the difficulty to 2. You're going to have to make a persuasion task of difficulty 2. It's probably describe for me how you try to convince him that the evidence that you have gathered is genuine.
Basically, I am going by a step-by-step process, but also very much in terms of the fact is that words are being taken out of context, and of course, language and all of that, but very importantly, it is such as quoting Shakespeare, where, you know, to be or not to be is used in Macbeth. No, of course not. It'll be like splicing the knife speech with Othello and also Titus Andronicus, all of this all together to create something new that would seem to be Shakespeare at first, but it isn't.
Okay, so since you're going kind of a dramatic performance route, why don't you give me a presence plus command task, difficulty 2.
Okay, I am going to be spending 3 momentum to get 40.
Okay, I'll get 2 extra dice, and if anyone wants to assist in some way and they want to role play it, you may certainly do that as well. As Lieutenant Commander Holm kind of stalks around the bridge of this Klingon vessel, quoting Shakespeare and pulling from the bard's greatest speeches to convince these Klingons that the evidence that you've uncovered is some sort of political ruse, and that you guys, of course, are way too honest and honorable to perpetrate such a crime.
Yes, but more importantly, I just got 2 successes, so I'm glad I bought 2 extra dice.
Okay, cool. Does anyone care to pitch in?
Yeah, as the lieutenant commander is going about Shakespeare, understanding that these guys appreciate impassioned speeches, Melvin decides to step in and says, "The cowards!" You know, whenever he mentions Raytheon Polar, and whoever has done this must pay, and, you know, so on and so forth.
Yeah.
So,
go ahead and give me presence plus another presence plus command task, difficulty 1. You just roll 1 d20 since you're assisting.
I have a score of 12 and it tied.
Okay, that equal to is a success. You want to be equal to or under. And so as you're sort of chipping in with those cowards and these sort of exclamations, you notice that one of the bridge crew is actually the member of the Klingon guard that you shared that octopus with. And he actually really appreciates everything you're saying. He seems to be on your side. And so you actually do sort of lend some weight to what Lieutenant Commander Holm is saying. And so you get an extra point of momentum back. And so Captain Clegg looks over your evidence, looks through your pad, takes a moment and puts it down. And so I will change the trait that he had was enraged by deception. And I will change it to enraged by Grathon Tolar. And he says, "I swear to you that I will devote every second of every day until we find Grathon Tolar and put him in Rurapenthe." And I don't know if you know anything about Rurapenthe, but it is the most brutal form of justice we Klingons know how to dish out.
The graveyard of aliens.
So you have heard of it. Grathon Tolar will pay, and he will wish for the sweet release of death before we are done with him. I will also go to the Klingon High Command and recommend that we continue our close relations with the Federation. You have done yourself a great honor this day. And he holds out his rather large Klingon mitt.
And I extend my hand and we shake.
Cool. So yeah, it appears for all the world to you guys that you have diffused this diplomatic crisis, at least for the moment.
Well done, Commander. Your oratory was quite impressive, quoting Shakespeare and all these references. That was fantastic.
Yes, yes. Well, one thing, Doctor, is I really do not like the arts, but I was raised in a family that loves the arts. And the wife also wants our children to be very cultured. So I have to be very much involved in this.
So, did you ever play a character in Hamlet?
Oh, dear God, no. Instead of theater, I basically was in the sports team. Make it smile.
Cool. Is there anything else that you guys want to do?
Nope.
I think we're all going to be at least sitting together and just relaxing after all of this, perhaps getting a debriefing from the admiral.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So Admiral Chithanis would want to debrief you, and as you guys file back into her office after this rather long ordeal, she says, "I want to commend you all for keeping a clear head and working diligently in a crisis situation. I think we strengthened the alliance with the Klingons today, and I think the Starfleet Command will be very proud of the work that you were able to do. I think I owe you some kind of explanation. The conversation that you saw with Admiral Nechayev never took place, and I can say that with 100% certainty. The complication here is that Starfleet intelligence does indeed have a contingency plan, should it become necessary, to sow disinformation among the Klingon Empire, to create distrust among the various Klingon houses. Klingon history is replete with internecine conflict. They've had civil wars. They've had conflicts from one house to another. And Starfleet intelligence feels very strongly that if it were to become necessary, that would be the easiest way to undermine Klingon power. So there is a contingency plan that looked very much like what was portrayed on that conversation. It concerns me greatly that someone was able to forge a conversation that so closely mirrors an actual plan that Starfleet has put together. To me, that indicates there's a leak somewhere.
It's either here or in Federation High Command.
What would you recommend as the Chief of Security, Lieutenant Commander Holm, if you suspect there might be a leak on this station?
I would suggest we check to see if there's any bugs anywhere, especially if there have been rotations in the crew. Who has been in your office recently?
Admiral, I do recall that earlier, that Lieutenant Search was able to find a bug in Grolkar's restaurant.
That's absolutely true. In my experience, Grolkar has only ever... He's good at finding new information. It's only ever... In my experience, he's only ever used it to serve his own bottom line. But I think it might be worth at least questioning him.
And also, the fellow is full of information about folks that are shady. He may have some information regarding Graython Toller at all, after all.
And let's not rule out the fact is there are certain factions within Starfleet that would like to have a sort of fight with the Klingons.
I would like to say that we've grown past such prejudices and motives, but I fear you might be right, Lieutenant Commander Holm.
Indeed.
Well, you gentlemen have earned a break. You've earned some rest. I suggest you take advantage of it and know that Starfleet Command has your thanks today.
Thank you, Admiral. I think we'll be dismissed.
You are indeed dismissed. And that is where we will end tonight's session. So I'm going to stop the broadcast.